News Talk 1240.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
There's one experience that I remember really well from my childhood that has haunted me for forever. And it involved, it's kind of silly, it involved buying something at a county fair or country fair or city fair or something like that. Way back when, probably close to 15 years ago now. And I remember when it happened, and I remember being horrified by the event. And I'll tell you what happened. This is Digital Drive here on Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240, and we're always here at hotnewstalkradio.com as well. You can follow me on Twitter, by the way. I've changed my Twitter handle that makes it a bazillion times easier to find me. All you got to do is search for Radio Russell, and there I am. Hey, cool, right? It's got my occupation, and it's got my name. So that makes it all the more easier for you to find me on Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter as well. You can get search for Hot News Talk Radio. We got tons of followers and tons of tweets on Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. And don't forget, too, to listen to Clutch of Keon Rose, who is coming up next after me here on Hot News Talk Radio. Now, this particular horrific event, which happened to me, well, it happened to have something to do with buying something, actually. Now, my mom used and still uses a debit card to buy things. And way back when, she used the debit card to buy something at like a county fair or something like that. And the card swiper they had a phone line connected to it. And they had this long phone line going from inside this nearby business, trailing all the way out to the outside of this county fair so she could swipe her card. And I thought that was just the weirdest thing, that they had to have this long cable going all the way out so you could plug into your card swiper. And it was a bizarre process. And actually, they still kind of do that these days. If you are using a card swiping machine at, say, Walmart or wherever, and you swipe your card, it actually is still going over basically the same protocol as it had been before. It's weird stuff, but that's how it is. Now, here's the thing. That's not that secure. I mean, it's kind of secure, but it's not as secure as we might want. Well, there's a new, and it's also not very intuitive. I mean, I know that people my age can do that, and I can't. For some reason, I just cannot figure out point of sale systems. They're way too confusing for me. But there are new technologies coming out, new services that make it a whole heck of a lot easier. One of them, of course, has been Square. We've been seeing Square pretty often. The Square Marketplace has been used quite a lot for different buying and selling things. In fact, I've heard that Bitcoin can be used on that as well, which is even more exciting. Now, that is a nice user experience. It works. You just plug it into your phone and you swipe your card. You really can't go wrong with that. So that's nice. Well, there is now a new startup here in Chattanooga, actually, that's working to have a nice user experience for all. And it's actually here locally in Chattanooga. It's a Chattanooga startup that's going to be making our buying experience just a little bit better. I read about it on Nooga.com. It's called Rapid RMS, started up by a guy named Nirav Patel. He actually started up with his parents, whose own convenience and liquor stores had some point of sale systems that were usually, he noticed, kind of inefficient and really complex, just like the ones that I had noticed. So Patel created a cloud-based point of sale system that helps businesses better manage their inventory and connect with similar businesses in the industry so they can get better understanding of what sells, what doesn't. It's all nice stuff. And it's cloud-based, so you can use it on your iPad, your phone, your whatever, and it costs less than other point of sale systems, Patel says. And that's always the nice bonus of some of these new tech, is that it works across platforms, which makes it ultimately cheaper for you. So say that there's a, let's say there's a point of sale system that comes out in the 90s, you'd have to buy a whole new system to use that. You'd have to buy a computer, a monitor, a card swiper, you'd have to buy a keyboard, you'd have to buy the whole system, probably made by IBM, which most of them were back in the day. You have to buy all these different things to ensure that you could use your point of sale system correctly. A point of sale system is just that. It's where you sell something. It's where you buy something. That's where the ultimate sale takes place. So that would be the cash register usually. Now, nowadays, most people don't actually use cash. So cash registers have sort of gone out the window. More often than not now, we're using systems like Square, where you just swipe a card. And that's where Patel's system comes in. And it's actually really neat. I'm kind of excited about the future of point of sale technology because this makes it easy for anyone to go into business. Technology is really influencing business in a lot of ways that perhaps were unforeseen previously. Here locally as well, we're seeing a lot of small startups in Chattanooga, and that's such great stuff because now we can have basically anyone can get into business and sell anything. And that's great because that's actual free market. It's the perfect storm essentially to create a real working free market. And that's great stuff because here in Chattanooga, we have a lot of creative people. We have a lot of people who are really willing to take risks and start businesses and just be unique. And I'm really excited to live here because of that. It's just great stuff. I really like living in the area where we live here in Chattanooga because there's so many great businesses and so many different really unique things going on. And we have such it just is unique. That's the best way to put it. It's a unique ecosystem. It's a unique culture we have here. And everything's just sort of meshes and works together really well. We have we have some chain businesses, but there are a lot of businesses downtown which are not chains, and they're started up by local people who you can go and meet and talk to, and they might even be your neighbor down the street and you don't even know it. There's a lot of great stuff going on here in Chattanooga. So systems like this coming out of a local guy, I'm even more excited about because that means that this could be affecting us even nationally, but the point of origin is here in Chattanooga. And I'm really excited about that. EPB is changing businesses too. EPB, as much as I might disagree with how it runs itself in terms of, government sponsoring a business, I don't really agree with that, but I can't deny that EPB does offer good internet service. I can't deny that because it's true and we use it. So even more in a quandary, aren't I? But no, EPB does offer good internet service and it's faster than anywhere else in the US as far as I know right now. It's got crazy speeds and that is really attractive to businesses. And you have to know that's why EPB did it, is to attract more businesses. This is essentially an investment on the side of the city in order to get more businesses to come into the area. And I get it. I don't agree with the methodology, but I get it. So we are seeing a boom in business. Now there's kind of a weird, what's the way to put it? There's sort of a weird attitude with businesses coming in. Like here in Chattanooga, we see a lot of people who are, for some odd reason, really upset when new businesses move in. Like there'll be some new, say, a big box store, and just people get mad about that because they have to build a nice big new building, which is going to ruin the landscape. It's going to ruin what everything looks like. And it's going to be terrible. Like on South Side, there's going to be a 7-story apartment building constructed, which has a parking garage and everything. And people are really mad about that because there's going to be a 7-story apartment building on South Side. But I mean, we want the city to grow, right? I mean, we want the city to bring in more money. We want the city to be successful. And yet for some odd reason, a lot of people anyway, not everybody, a lot of people are shocked when these brand new buildings come out. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it's going to ruin the landscape. Well, this is a growing city. People need to live somewhere. And it just so happens that a 7-story apartment building happens to be a really nice place to live, especially if it's right downtown. Rent's going to be through the roof, I guarantee. So, I mean, I don't understand the problem here. Number to call in is 423-800-8949, by the way, 423-800-8949. You're to call in at Hot News Talk Radio. One thing I really don't like, though, about some of the city planning stuff that I've seen here in Chattanooga, and I've lived here all my life. Well, I've lived in the greater metropolitan area, I should say. I live in Georgia, technically. Something that I really don't like about what we're doing in Chattanooga, or what the city council initiatives are doing in Chattanooga, is these new bike lanes. I get why. I know why bike lanes are being pushed as much as they are. I understand it. I just don't like them because they have these new enclosed bike lanes, but they're not changing the width of the traffic lanes. That's kind of a problem already. They're saying that it's going to bring more business to these different businesses, and they're saying that it's going to be really great, and oh look, it's going to encourage people to not drive, and it's going to be better for the environment, yada yada. But it's really unpopular. I mean, these bike lanes are really, really unpopular. Now, it might be something where people complain about it now, and then later we're all just fine with it because things are the way they are. That might be how it will be. But right now, people are really upset about these new bike lanes downtown. And I have personally witnessed them, and I can tell you they're really annoying. I don't go downtown that much. I mean, I do, but I don't go downtown every weekend or anything like that. I don't have a whole lot of reason to. Basically, I go back and forth from Ringgold to Hickson, and that's my everyday life. Basically, is going back and forth Ringgold to Hickson because I work in Hickson, I live in Ringgold, so hey, why not? Plus, I like Georgia. I really don't like the Vols either, and that's one thing that'll get you crucified up here. But no, I understand the whole anger about the bike lanes, and I understand why they wanted the bike lanes there. And I have to say that I don't agree with putting the bike lanes there the way they did, because it's, again, an intervention on the side of city government saying we're going to make sure that the city prospers and it's in our best interest to do this. And the city makes a decision instead of, say, maybe the people in the storefront deciding to put bike lanes in themselves. I can understand that. But really, it seems to be a problem of regulation, because think about this. There's a lot of just dumb regulation in Chattanooga. I'm going to say it. There's dumb regulation in Chattanooga. Really stupid stuff is illegal. Just really dumb stuff. For instance, it's against city ordinance in Chattanooga to skateboard. Ooh, oh man. Skateboarding downtown is just the worst thing one can ever do, right? And I know people are going to be like, oh, well, those skateboarders, they're a hassle and they get in the way and yada, yada. The thing is, hey, guess what? If you get damaged, then there's a claim. But if you're not damaged, there's no claim, right? So crimes are based upon damages. So if there's a skateboarder and he crashes into you, well, that's a problem. I can see that. You can sue, you can press charges for assault or whatever, reckless endangerment. I don't know. You can sue, you can press charges. But if nothing like that happens, there's no claim. The same thing goes for bikes on the sidewalk. People go nuts for some reason about how bikes on the sidewalk are just going to ruin everything. And I don't see that as being the case. Bikes on the sidewalk don't seem to be the biggest threat to the city ever. And that would solve the whole bike lane problem too, is just, hey, how about you let bikes on the sidewalks and suddenly the bike lane problem is no longer a problem because you don't even need them. So again, city ordinance has really kind of hurt the local economy. Could it be that regulation is not the solution to some of our problems? I know that's kind of a wild concept, but maybe that actually is the case. There's a lot of really silly city ordinances, and it's not just Chattanooga. Every city has really dumb city ordinances. For instance, in Georgia, there's a lot of dumb laws about fireworks, right? Like, ooh, fireworks. And the silly thing is, I live outside of city limits, so city ordinance doesn't apply to me, which is really nice. But there's also a problem where even in outside of city limits, Georgia state law and Chattanooga County law makes it illegal for me to shoot off fireworks just whenever I want. Not that I would, but it just seems petty to make that illegal. Like, the neighbors can complain, yeah, but illegal? You get fined $10 or whatever? That just seems over the top. And we keep seeing that too, where people want there to be fines and people want there to be extra regulations and whatever, city ordinances. And I kind of doubt that Chattanooga actually needs more laws and city ordinances and county meetings about all these different things. It just seems kind of, well, useless maybe. Maybe it just seems to be a waste of time. And a lot of the things that Chattanooga does in terms of city ordinances and in terms of moving forward with the city, it seems to be actually a waste of time. Case in point, Uber. My gosh, when Uber came out, the whole Uber fiasco in Chattanooga, first of all, you had the taxi companies complaining. You had the taxi companies saying, oh, this isn't fair. Well, this is a twofold problem, because on the one hand, the taxi companies shouldn't be regulated, free market and all. The taxi companies shouldn't have been regulated in the first place. But the remedy for that problem is not to push more regulation. Like, man, we're upset that it's unfair taxi companies get regulated, but Uber doesn't. So how about lift the regulation on the taxi companies instead of putting more regulation on Uber? Like, maybe that would solve your problem. There would be no conflict anymore. The drums of progress will beat on, as I like to say. In New York City, we're seeing the same problem, quote unquote problem, where in New York City, they have medallions. They've got this medallion system where you have to have a medallion to legally drive a yellow cab and to pick up customers and everything like that. But the thing is, Uber has come around, which is not regulated the same way yellow cabs are or at all. And that means that the price of medallions has gone way down. It's basically crashed. They've even called it the medallion crash. I've seen that in several news organizations where they're calling them the medallion crash in New York City. Now, on its face, that sounds terrible, but actually it's kind of not, because it's not that the yellow cab drivers are suddenly losing their jobs. It's that they're switching over to Uber because they're making more money. Now, I'm not being paid by Uber to say any of that. I'm not actually being paid by anybody to say anything. So it's not a problem of people are losing their jobs. It's a problem of there's a new service and people are moving over to that new service, which actually is not a problem at all. It means money in the pockets of local people. So how is that a problem exactly? I'd like to know. It seems like it's not a problem at all. Wow. And the same argument came up before the Chattanooga City Council not too long ago. I'm going to say maybe a year ago, when Uber was being proposed. And it wasn't even being proposed. People were proposing regulation against Uber. And our situation between David Tulis of Nooganomics.com and I, we did a joint show one time to talk about Uber specifically. And we came to an agreement that really the action of the city council should be no action. Doing nothing would be the best action. It draws me back to an old quote from Spurgeon, whom I'm really a fan. And one of the things he said was, when given the choice between the lesser of two evils, choose neither. And that would be the best solution. Is just inaction would be the best option when it comes to this city council nonsense with Uber. Just how about do nothing? Because that would solve many more problems than more action. Just do nothing. Regulation is actually hurting us more than it's ever going to help us. Number to call in here is 423-800-8949 here at Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and we're on hotnewstalkradio.com as well, where you can listen to us streaming live. Go to YouTube and then search for Hot News Talk Radio, and you can see us streaming live on YouTube on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and we're always here at hotnewstalkradio.com as well. I want to give some tips about ads on the internet. Now, this is sort of a new frontier in the sense that it's not 20 years old or 100 years old. Ads on the internet are very new in the sense of the history of advertising. Like print ads have been around basically forever. We've been doing print ads probably since Gutenberg first laid type. We've been doing print ads for a long time. Now, internet ads are formatted in much the same way as print ads, but they have to be much shorter, much more to the point. You go to New Yorker and you read some ads on their magazine, and it's going to be really long, nice full color stuff. You don't have the room, you don't have the real estate to do that on the internet. On the net, it's got to be almost deceptive, just, almost deceptive. And that's what we're seeing now with Google ads, where some of the ads on Google are almost deceptive, just a little bit almost deceptive. Well, The Verge has a story about that, saying the familiar narrative of teens and technology is one of nature's proficiency, that young people just get technology in a way that older generations don't, because we grew up with it. That's the thing. It's not that old people are dumb, because they're not. It's not that baby boomers are idiots, because they're not. It's that it's an experience thing. It's being raised up to understand these things naturally, where computers for us and touchscreen interfaces, especially for us, are just second nature. We just get it. It's like social media, where it's just second nature. We just get it because we kind of grew up with it. Facebook came out around, I want to say 2007 or so is when we first started really using Facebook. And I was 12 when Facebook first started becoming a big thing. I wasn't even old enough to use Facebook when Facebook started to become a big thing. So Facebook accounts are something that I've just been used to and have had for almost a majority of my life. Actually, I will have had a Facebook account. And that's probably a weird concept to a lot of people, that, wow, for a majority of this guy's life, he's used a Facebook account. And yeah, I have. It actually has been a part of my life for almost a majority of it. Same goes for Twitter, and same goes for all these other services that we're used to. And they all sort of build upon, a lot of them anyway, sort of build upon the Facebook structure. You see that even with Twitter now changing favorites to likes, which I think is a stupid idea. And I've been using YouTube actually for a majority of my life, for over half of my life now, because YouTube started up in 2005. So next year, on YouTube's next birthday, I'll been using YouTube for 11 years, which means that's a majority of my life at that point. So I will have been using YouTube for over half of my life. And again, that seems like a weird concept to the older generation, but hey, that's just technology. That's just how it works. You used a Walkman perhaps for a majority of your life. You used phonograph records for a majority of your life. It's just technology, and it progresses. Well, ads progress just as technology does, and the ads have gotten a lot more clever. We see ads nowadays that look like news articles, but are actually advertisements for whatever. Even on somewhat reputable news sites, we'll see ads that look like news articles, and it can be deceptive. A lot of the time too, you'll see ads that are just there to put malware in your computer that masquerade as security scans, which they're not. you'll see an ad that's sort of animated, and it has a little alert box jumping around and says, your computer might be infected. Click here to do a free scan. And it's not going to do a free scan, and it's also not going to detect any viruses. And if it does, it'll tell you to fix them. And by fixing them, it'll ask for administrator privileges. And by doing that, it will put bad stuff on your computer. So don't ever accept a free scan from some internet website that you don't recognize, or even if you do recognize it, don't accept one. You get actual antivirus software, which is fine. You can get AVG, you can get Avast, you can get, I wouldn't recommend McAfee, but you can get all sorts of other different Malwarebytes is another good one. You can get all sorts of different free antivirus software that is not going to be distributed to you with a strange alert on the web. Just don't do that. And we're going to talk more about internet ads and how they've changed kind of everything here in just a few minutes on Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240. And we're always here at hotnewstalkradio.com as well. So be sure to check us out on the net and on TuneIn.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky is our limit.
Here you are, working to keep your customers happy and to manage your cash flow. IRS problems are the last thing you need, but here they are, flapping about you like vultures. Get help from Eric Pelton and his team of accountants at E.J. Pelton Company. Audits, letters, proposed return changes, 1099s, penalty threats. Pelton Tax Resolution Services brings peace of mind and helps you keep more of what you've earned. EJPelton.com. Offices on Brainerd Road and in Soddy Daisy, just north of the Bilo. That's E.J. Pelton. Call 622-3156. Think ahead, 622-3156.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Soddy Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Soddy Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Soddy, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. My guest this week is former Congressman from Ohio, Dennis Kucinich, who says a Department of Defense is not enough. The United States needs a Department of Peace, which is committed to avoiding wars. Is Kucinich onto something? Find out this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
President Obama makes Jimmy Carter look like Napoleon Bonaparte. We have a president that leads from behind, and when America doesn't lead, bad things happen.
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm David Tulis, inviting you to make the move with me 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. The David Tulis Show, featuring Nooganomics.com for Chattanooga and beyond. 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. The security minister of Mali says there are no more hostages being held in a standoff with gunmen at a Radisson in the capital of the West African nation. Al-Qaeda-linked jihadists claiming responsibility. One report says 27 bodies have been recovered. A week after the deadly Paris attacks, word of a third body possibly linked to terrorists coming up.
Police have been saying all along that they weren't sure whether it was 2 or 3 dead bodies in that house raided in Saint-Denis on Wednesday morning. Apparently now it does turn out there was a third. The bodies were so mangled after all the explosions, the suicide bombing, and the 5,000 gunshots fired by police that it was a very difficult crime scene to unravel. I'm in front of the National Assembly right now.
Fox's Amy Kellogg. French officials also announcing one of the wounded victims has died. Fox News, we report. You decide.
We're all crunched for time. You know, that's how the American business place is now. And it's funny how we're kind of evolving our business places to be better for relaxation and rest. And look at Google, how Google's workplaces almost look like playgrounds. Maybe nobody gets any work done over there. I don't know, but I wish I worked in an environment like that. Not to knock what I have here, but that means I'm going to be moving in some beanbag chairs pretty soon, just saying. But no, we're kind of, I wouldn't say we're overworked, but I think we're doing a lot more work than perhaps we used to, because productivity is like through the roof. We can do all sorts of cool things with our computers now, which means we can do a whole lot more work, which is on one hand nice and on the other hand really stressful. So that's why people are balding much faster now. But I digress. No, the American business place has changed so much just in the last 15 years that it's almost unrecognizable from what we had before. Watch a movie like Wall Street, where it's just so laughably 80s. And it's funny because then that was like high culture, cool stuff. And now it's just like laughably 80s. Like American Psycho is just laughably early 90s-ish. And it's like, it's totally almost unrecognizable from what we have today. It's not even in the same business place. One of my favorite movies of all time actually was a TV movie, Pirates of the Silicon Valley. And it's about the rebirth, or not the rebirth, but the foundation and the birth of Apple Computer Company from its start to, I think, when the Mac came out. And it's really good. I'm not an Apple fan, but it's a really good series or movie, and it's a really good just view into how that whole thing happened. And it's so laughably 70s and 80s now that it's funny because you're watching the story of the company that brought the MacBook and the iMac that's now in every hipster's bedroom and office. So it's just funny to watch that happening. And probably the modern guy 20 years from now will be saying, well, why aren't they just using, their MacBooks to do this or that? It's because these guys invented the MacBook. It's a weird culture that we're being brought up in now. My generation especially is growing up in sort of a weird time. It's different from anything we had before. Now everyone's connected in a way that was not possible 20 years ago. So everything is different. Everything is different. Nothing has been the same since the start of the net, I guess. It's a really weird market which we live in. Well, something that has changed a lot is ads. Ads have changed a lot. We're not used to, or we are, but the older generation is not used to the ads which we see nowadays. As an example, you were used to commercials probably on TV because everyone is. I don't watch TV anymore, but if I did, I would be used to the commercials because I'm used to seeing them. And it's actually kind of funny because I was jarred by the commercials I watched when I rewatched TV. My parents watch TV like crazy. I hate TV so much, so I don't watch it. But when I was watching TV and I like the ads started playing and I was like, oh, I got to wait for a 30-second ad to finish. And then another one and another one and another one. I was like, why are there so many dang ads? So how do you ever watch these shows? There's so many dang ads, you can't even get to the shows. And gosh, it was awful. It was really awful stuff. And the ads are all stupid. So I hate TV. I can't watch TV because the ads are bad, right? They're just dumb and they're trying to pander to the new generation. And it just doesn't work because they're lame. And then you have the programming, which is dumb too. I really hate a lot of the stuff that's on TV nowadays, like reality shows. I just cannot stand that. And then you've got the people too. Like, I don't like the people on TV either. The only TV I can watch is like news. That's it. I feel like I've become a really boring grown-up because all I can watch is news. Internet, however, I can spend all day on the internet and watch all sorts of videos from all over the place and be totally fine. It's weird how that works out, because it really is about 4,000 times better to be entertained on the net than it is to be entertained on TV, because you have actual control of what you're watching. And now ads have had to shift over to the internet in a much bigger way, and billions of dollars are being made on internet ads. In fact, Google is an ad company. It's not creative search engine company. It's not a company that puts out platforms for this or that. It's an ad company. Google is probably one of the best ad companies on the planet right now. Google's an ad company. Facebook is an ad company too. Facebook might be an even better ad company, not in terms of revenue, but in terms of strategy, because on Facebook, you willingly give over all of your information essentially, so the ads can be tailor-made for your demographic. It's genius. It's great stuff. It's also kind of diabolical, but it is genius. Well, according to The Verge, the familiar narrative of teens and technology is one of natural proficiency, which we tend to have. I'm not a teenager anymore, but when I was, my parents would get really frustrated at me for being good at computers, and they weren't as much. I still play the IT guy at my parents' house most of the time, actually. And one guy, James Thickett, told the Financial Times, the internet allows children to learn, discover different points of view, and stay connected with friends and family. But these digital natives still need help to develop the know-how they need to navigate the online world. Because it's not like I'm 3 years old and suddenly I can just use everything on the internet and I'm proficient and I can code JavaScript. It doesn't work that way. I'm not coding Pascal or C++ from the age of 2. I'm not that smart. I'm not smart enough to code Pascal or C++ now even, because I'm way too lazy to learn that. But still, we tend to be naturally proficient at it because we grew up around it. It's like kids who grow up on the ocean tend to be really good at swimming. Kids who grow up around technology tend to be really good at using computers, and thus we are. Well, in the test carried out by Ofcom earlier this year, children were shown screenshots of Google search results for the term trainers and asked whether the results at the top of the page were either A, ads, or B, the most relevant results, or C, the most popular results. Despite the fact that these topmost search results were outlined in an orange box and labeled with the word ad, for some reason, these kids did not recognize them as ads. Now, that's a little bit weird. Now, Google is nice about ads in the sense that it will tell you when you're seeing an ad. And just as it describes, there's a yellow box around the ads with a nice little word that says ad. So you know when you're looking at an ad. But some of us, I guess, I don't know if it's lazy is the right word, but some of us just don't recognize that we're looking at an ad. Like, for instance, I don't have ad block on, I actually specifically don't have ad block on this computer here so I can demonstrate stuff like this. I'll just search for, what should I search for? Radio. Why not? Because we're on radio. So I search for radio, and guess what? On the right-hand corner or right-hand side of the screen, we see all sorts of little ads. Now, that's fine because that's how Google makes its money. There's one for Pandora, Target, EasyListening.com, free online radio, free radio Nashville, all sorts of little ads for stuff that you should not bother with because you have hotnewstalkradio.com. And it says, at the top, the little orange box says ads. Those are not search results for you. Now, you might find something in there that you would want, but it's being paid for by these different companies. And you even see little ratings on there too. Now, on the middle of the screen, you have actual things that are actually relevant. And apparently, according to this, you have 2 billion results in 0.55 seconds. So just over half a second, you have over 2 billion results. Not bad when you just search for one solitary word. Well, that's all cool stuff. But again, you're seeing ads. In fact, if you scroll down, it says see your ad here, which you can click on, and then you can put an ad up there for your target demographic. So Google ads are really nice stuff, right? I mean, you can't go wrong with internet ads because there's tons of money to be made off of them so long as you're targeting the right demographic and yada, yada. And I'm certainly not an expert at social media ads or ads on the internet at all, but I do know how it works in a rudimentary form. But for some reason, a lot of people be duped into thinking that those are real search results for things that they really search for. And that is often not the case. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with internet ads, but you have to recognize what's an ad and what isn't, so you're not duped into clicking on something that you think is actually a search result for something you search for, when in actuality, it's just an ad that came up. So you have to be careful about these things, hence my telling you about these things. The world of ads has changed quite a lot. We almost have ad breaks on YouTube now, where on YouTube you can even get a 3-minute ad, which you can skip after a few seconds, but you still have the image of Nike burned into your retinas or whatever else it happens to have been in this particular ad on YouTube. Google is one of the best ad companies on the planet. You really can't argue with Google ads. They work, they're great, they're not obtrusive most of the time, they're just good. And that's the new frontier of ad selling. So we have to recognize that ads are going to be new. They're going to be different from what we're used to. It's not going to be obviously an advertisement sometimes. Sometimes it might even be tailored to be rather deceptive. Example of that is you'll see an ad that'll come up that'll say, your computer's infected. Click on this and we'll do a free scan for you. Never, ever, ever do that, because that's a really nice way to get your computer actually infected with actual ads or with actual malware or adware or whatever else. Another thing that we keep seeing is toolbars on web browsers. Oh man, toolbars on web browsers. Don't ever accept an invitation to get a toolbar on your web browser. You don't want one, trust me. Toolbars are totally not cool. And for some reason, people still have them. Like on Firefox, I see people who have toolbars, even on Chrome and on Internet Explorer, especially. I see people who have toolbars, and I don't understand how. Like, how do you get them? I probably couldn't get toolbars if I tried, but for some reason, so many people just keep getting toolbars, and I don't understand how. But anyway, you don't want toolbars. You also don't want conduit search. And one thing that a lot of people have trouble with is installing new programs and then just hitting next repeatedly. You're going to want to check on that, because you don't want to keep hitting next repeatedly. There's going to be a little checkbox that'll say, I agree to install this program, and I agree to have conduit search toolbar be my default search engine and all this different stuff. Make sure that when you're clicking through on installing a program, make sure it's actual stuff you actually want, so you don't end up with a bunch of toolbars that give you Yahoo search instead of Google and really mess up your internet experience, which you definitely don't want. Fortunately, on smartphones, that doesn't really happen as often. I've never seen a toolbar for a mobile browser on Facebook, or on Firefox, or Google Chrome or Safari or anything like that. So phones tend to actually be a little bit safer. There is still malware on phones, but you'd have to specifically download an app for that to happen, which is nice. So sometimes, though, on different search results or different websites on your mobile browser, a thing will pop up saying, your phone is infected. Click OK to install this sweeper program, just as you would on a desktop. You don't want to do that. You just don't. Trust me. So I don't know. Ads have changed a lot in the last 20 years. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know. It's a new frontier, I guess, of selling ads and selling people things. It's changed a lot. Now we have people who are given, say, paid sponsorships for different items on YouTube. You have e-celebrities now, people who are celebrities on YouTube. What's the guy's name? He's on Vine and stuff. Nash Greer. Like, I don't know anything about Nash Greer or what he does. I just know he has Vine videos that are really popular for some odd reason. But I see him on covers of magazines now. Like, I don't know who this kid is, but he's probably older than me. I don't know who this guy is, but he keeps popping up on magazines and stuff. It's because he's popular online, and I got to get used to that, because I'm still getting used to that, because I'm used to people getting popular because they were on MTV or VH1, or they, I don't know, had a music video that actually played on TV or on Nickelodeon. They won the Kids' Choice Awards and they got popular. That's how I'm used to it. But now it's on the internet. Things have changed quite a lot. Well, universities are having some trouble, and I'm totally fine with that, because I don't think you should go to college. No, actually, I didn't go to college. I've never had any interest in going to college, even though I had various different people tell me specifically I should have gone to college. I've not found that to be true at all, actually, in my practical real-world experience. I've never actually needed to have gone to college. Funnily enough, I'm doing exactly what I want to do. I'm not poor, and I didn't go to college. And so why should I have gone to college? I'd like to know. In fact, a lot of people on radio didn't go to college, and I knew radio was what I wanted to do. So why would I go to college? Why would I do that? Why would I waste time with that? Why would I go to university? Well, it seems that university subscriptions have actually gone down quite a lot, despite, for some reason, people still thinking you need to go, and I don't know why. I understand if it's a specialized thing, like, say, you want to go to nursing school, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a systems analyst, you want to do something that really does actually need quite a lot of high-level education, that makes sense. But if we're just talking about you want to be in radio or you want to work for a startup, I don't understand the whole you need a bachelor's degree and all this different stuff. Experience means a whole lot more to me than any sort of degree ever could. And I'll probably be in a position someday where I will be hiring people, and I really won't care what degree you've got. It doesn't matter to me. You say you've got a bachelor's from this or that and you just graduated, that means you have no real world experience. Now, I'm willing to give you a shot, but real world experience is something that I value a whole heck of a lot more than I would value some degree from wherever, DeVry or even Harvard. Great, you've got a Harvard degree, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be good at radio. I'm happy you have this Harvard degree, but that doesn't mean you're going to be good at radio. Sorry. But anyway, I'm actually not sorry. I don't know why I said sorry. I'm not sorry at all. I'm happy that you got yourself a Harvard degree and you think that you're good at radio, but you have to prove it to me. And I am totally unapologetic in my stance on that. You got to prove to me that you're good at something before I'll actually believe that you are good at something and worth me hiring you. So I do not apologize for that. Anyway, federal funding is dropping to universities, which is sending them scrambling to pay for research. Now, research is kind of an important thing that universities do, and a lot of it is funded by the National Science Foundation. In fact, if you've ever watched PBS ever in your life, you've probably noticed ads from the NSF. This Nova is brought to you by the National Science Foundation. You see that a lot, and that's exactly what it does. It funds research. It funds a lot of general science research in the U.S., much of which takes place at the U.S.'s educational institutions, such as, of course, Harvard or all these different universities. So other federal grants come from organizations like NASA, NOAA, the weather thing, and the National Institutes of Health. But in recent years, federal funding has actually been stagnant at best and often even declining once inflation is taken into account. So since the early 1970s, the National Science Foundation has been tracking the flow of research dollars at universities. Over that entire time period, research funding was on a gentle upward trajectory. But as NSF figures show, that gentle curve was replaced by volatility in 2000, which has now led to the first 3-year decline since records have started. Now, is this going to be a continuing trend? Are universities going to be entirely defunded by the National Science Foundation? Who knows? We don't actually know now. And it's a very fickle situation for the people working for these universities who need federal funding to do research, but perhaps other avenues should be looked at. Starting in 2000, federal funding of science saw a huge boost from the decision to double the budget of the National Institutes of Health, a process that was completed later in the decade. From there, however, tightening of the federal budget led to a short decline in the federal research dollars. This was reversed by the fiscal stimulus, which led to a sudden reversal around 2010. But since the stimulus has petered out, things headed back to where they were before. In constant dollars, funding has fallen over 10% since the 2011 peak, which represents the longest drop since the National Science Foundation started tracking things. It's not entirely grim, though, for the research community, however. Other sources of funding, say state foundations and other individual benefactors, have actually picked up a lot of the slack. As a result, the total dollars being spent on university-based research has only declined actually slightly, but on the national scale, funding has gone down. Now, there's something that's been coming out that is really what I wanted to get to for the last 45 minutes and just haven't yet. It's something a judge said about Stingray. He says that stingrays are simply too powerful. Wow. Simply too powerful without adequate oversight is what one federal judge in Illinois said, taking an unusual step of issuing 3 new stringent requirements for the government when it wants to deploy cell site simulators, which, of course, spy on your cell phone in order to acquire information. So the move aims to protect the Fourth Amendment rights of innocent bystanders against unreasonable search and seizure, which, of course, means that it is, in fact, illegal for a, say, law enforcement agency to use one of these devices without a warrant. That is a crime. And in fact, you probably should be jailed for doing that if you ever have. Of course, for now, This order only applies to the one judge in the Northern District of Illinois. These new Stingray requirements come just about a month after the Department of Homeland Security imposed its own warrant requirement, following a similar move by the Department of Justice. Now, following the attacks in Paris, this is going to be actually kind of unpopular with some groups, especially neocons. Neocons are going to be rather upset because they're all about terrorism and, oh, look, the terrorists are using the internet to stop, to plan terrorist attacks, so we need to track the internet or whatever. But the simple fact of the matter is this: it's illegal to do that. It's actually a crime. I don't care what law enforcement agencies are saying. Using a Stingray device without a warrant is a crime. It actually is illegal under the Fourth Amendment. Very plainly illegal, in fact, under the Fourth Amendment, and thus should not be done. And if it is done, that's a violation of the Constitution by an elected official if it's done by a sheriff. And it's simply violation of the Constitution by an authority figure, I guess, if it's the cops. Although I don't give much credence to the police. I care a lot more about the sheriff's office than I do about the police. See, for some reason, people think that I'm anti-law enforcement. I'm not actually. I'm anti-police, but I'm not anti-law enforcement in the sense of the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office is legitimate. And the sheriff has arrest powers. The sheriff is an actual common law thing. But a police agency is kind of unconstitutional, actually. In fact, it's very unconstitutional, and thus police agencies should not exist, plain and simple. That's not to say that there should be no law enforcement at all, because, again, the sheriff is the thing. The sheriff can deputize people as many as he wants. The sheriff can raise a private army if he wants to. But the sheriff has those powers. Police agencies should not exist. Simple as that. So we would actually probably have a better functioning system if the sheriff were in charge of all law enforcement, or rather if the sheriff didn't delegate some of his powers over to the police. Because again, the police are private agencies, and that doesn't really lead to very good accountability. Plus, you have police agencies run by unions, fraternal order of police, which is definitely not something you want. And I would rather have a sheriff than I would want a police agency run by fraternities and all these sorts of nasty little things, which are, saying that probably means that my brake lines will be cut and I'll be pulled over for no reason and maybe we'll be shot in the middle of the night in Coolidge Park or something, but that just is how it is. I don't think that police agencies are actually legal, because they kind of aren't constitutionally. They're actually really illegal. And we keep seeing examples of these different police agencies using Stingray devices to spy on cell phones. And again, that's an illegal action by an illegal entity. You may as well have the mafia spying on you at this point. Not only can Stingrays be used to determine location by spoofing a cell tower, they can also be used to intercept calls and text messages. Once deployed, the devices intercept data from a target phone as well as information from other phones within this vicinity. As part of an ongoing drug case, U.S. Magistrate Judge Ian Johnston told prosecutors recently that they will now have to fulfill 3 distinct requirements before he'll sign off on the use of the invasive surveillance devices as a way to protect the privacy of those who happen to be near a surveillance target. That's another problem. It's not like these devices just target the people who they're intended to target. It doesn't work that way. These devices act as a cell phone tower, which means all the phones in the vicinity will connect to it. Yeah. Every single phone within that area will connect to that particular cell site simulator, meaning everyone is being spied upon. Everyone in that area is having their information potentially illegally taken. So that's also kind of a big problem, but it's being downplayed very significantly by people who are advocating for these Stingray devices. And then they're going to talk about the danger, right? The danger of using these cell site simulators, or not using these cell site simulators, because it means then drugs can be sold. Well, there's such a thing as legitimate policing. There's such a thing as doing a legitimate investigation that's totally within the bounds of the Constitution. For some reason, we've gone outside of that because all these different allowances have been made, right? Because now it's sort of like the camel in the tent analogy, where whatever the first unconstitutional thing was allowed, eventually another one and another one and another one, until eventually the Constitution gets kicked out of the tent, and now you have this unruly monster of the state in its place, which is kind of what we have now. People are worried about a police state. Well, we kind of already have one, actually. We are living in a police state right now. But for some reason, we refuse to recognize that, or at least a lot of people do. Well, Clutch with Keon Rose is coming up next here on Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240 and hotnewstalkradio.com. He's going to be talking about sports right here, Hot News Talk Radio AM 1240, and on Twitter as well, and on the TuneIn Radio app for your smartphone. That's Hot News Talk Radio.